everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is Michael Mulholland, Chief Financial Officer of CytoDyn. Joining us on today's webcast is our President and CEO, Dr. Nader Pourhassan, our Chairman, Chief Medical Officer, and Head of Business Development, Dr. Scott Kelly, our Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Chris Rechner, and our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Mahbub Rahman. Before we begin, it is essential that we provide you with important cautionary language related to certain federal securities laws. Our remarks during today's webcast will include forward-looking statements. Forward-looking statements are not guarantees of future performance and involve known and unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors that are difficult to predict. Actual results may be materially different from any future results expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. These risks and uncertainties include, among other matters, statements regarding leronlimab's potential efficacy in certain immunology and oncology indications, the company's ongoing ability to raise additional new capital, that clinical trials may not commence or proceed as planned, products that appear promising in early trials may not subsequently prove to be viable on safety or efficacy grounds, products may not receive regulatory approval or market acceptance, competition may reduce the commercial potential of our products, we may experience product recalls, manufacturing issues, or product liability, and our patents may be challenged or unenforceable. Although forward-looking statements help to provide complete information about the company, forward-looking statements may be less reliable than historical information. The company undertakes no obligation to update publicly these forward-looking statements except as required by law. Please refer to our recent quarterly and annual reports filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission for more information about the risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially versus our current expectations. As a reminder, please submit your questions via the link provided in our press release, and following our prepared comments, we will do our very best to answer your questions this afternoon. I will now turn the webcast over to Dr. Nader Pourhassan.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you all for participating on today's call. As we promised, we will update everyone on our progress every week or two, since we believe CytoDyn is embarking on many important opportunities. 2 weeks ago, we explained and announced the results of CD12 COVID-19 severe to critical populations and explained why we believe this was very strong results relative to any other results reported. But before I start today's update, I would like for our Chief Medical Officer, who is also CytoDyn's Chairman of the Board, to update everyone on where we are with COVID-19 situation and why CytoDyn believes that if approved, we can play a role in providing a therapy for COVID-19 for many years to come. Dr. Scott Kelly, could you please?
Yes, thank you, Nader. I appreciate that. So before we begin discussing the current landscape of COVID-19, I want to emphasize that there have been approximately 3,000 therapeutic trials for COVID-19. And as we all know, most have failed. Less than 5% of these trials have been randomized and adequately powered. Leronlimab is in a very unique position. We believe we have a clear path forward and are working very closely with regulatory agencies throughout the world, our team, key scientific advisors, and statisticians to be sure we make leronlimab available to those patients in need. So a recurring question that is being asked is, does leronlimab have a role with the ongoing vaccination efforts? Let's look at the facts. Despite 2.5 million vaccinations occurring daily and 124 million vaccinations administered in the United States, COVID-19 cases have risen in 21 states and the infection rate has plateaued. The problem we are now facing are the variants, and no longer just the wild-type virus. The variants are now circulating, and the UK variant is 30% of all infections in the United States. Although we believe the current vaccinations will provide protection against the UK variant, we are not sure about many of the other variants, and we don't know what other variants may emerge. In New York City, you have the 526 variant, and now the Brazilian P1 variant. In California, you have the 427 and 429 variants, and the South African variant 351 is circulating as well. Why is this important for Laran Lama? We believe that Laran Lama is not dependent on if the virus is the wild-type virus or a variant. Our target is not the virus. Our mechanism of action is to control the CCR5 expressing pro-inflammatory immune cells, such as activated T cells and macrophages, that are thought to play a key role in the immune response. Our goal is to restore immune function in the sickest COVID-19 patients. We learned from CD12 that Laran Lama has the potential to be synergistic with other medications, and Laran Lama was well tolerated with no new safety signals. I want to be clear that our potential is not limited to the United States. We are moving forward with all opportunities, both domestically and internationally. Nader?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. So, 2 weeks ago, we explained the results of CD12. Therefore, I will only do a quick overview of those results and then get to our important update. CD12 trial was for 394 patients in severe to critical COVID-19 population. This 394 patient is called ITT, intent to treat population. Only 384 patients were dosed, whether with leronlimab or placebo. That population of 384 is called modified intent to treat, MITT. The takeaway from our CD12 results were, we believe that critical population, which was a pre-specified group, did well by showing almost 24% relative data. What is relative data? Relative delta. Relative delta means the mortality in the placebo was 24% less than, it was more than leronlimab arm. So there was 24% more mortality in placebo. This is a favorable result for us. Now, this was not statistically significant, but was amongst one of the best results that had been reported by any big pharma for COVID-19 in critical population. 24% saved in mortality. We also announced that the age stratification in CD12 trial happened to be against us by chance. It happened to be a 3-to-1 randomization, 3 in leronlimab, 1 in placebo, for over 65 years old patients, instead of 2-to-1 randomization, 2 leronlimab versus and 1 in placebo. To make matter worse, most of the deaths, more than 75%, happened in the over 65 population. We did age adjustment as is appropriate and is allowed by regulatory agency, and we realized that we are actually statistically significant or very close to being statistically significant in a few areas amongst severe or amongst critical populations. But this is called subpopulation analysis. And regulatory agencies do not give approval in this kind of analysis. But since we are in a pandemic, we are hoping that we can perhaps get a conditional emergency use authorization while we continue to generate more data for regulatory agencies in several different countries, including United States. So, with this background about our results, here is what we have done to move leronlimab forward for COVID-19 approval. Operator, could you please go to slide number 2 where it says COVID-19 on the top? So the first thing is, where are we with emergency use authorization with FDA? Please note that when you want to ask for emergency use authorization in United States, you will submit a request. So you file your request with the FDA. We did that. And we also told the FDA at the very beginning, here's our executive summary. The FDA said that these results are good enough to allow you to continue with another trial to get more data for critical populations. So they did not shut us down saying you don't have anything. They said there is reason to believe to go forward. We then filed a request for conditional EUA formally. We asked the agency to allow us to have a conditional emergency use authorization while we get more data from another trial, which is we call it CD16. However, after our scientists all elaborated on certain items, we believe that we should do two different trials. One, CD16 for below 65 to get approval and emergency use authorization and hit our p-value, hopefully. For under 65, we saw great results in our study across severe, critical, subpopulation, obviously, but again, reason to believe that we can do very well. That protocol has been submitted to FDA as of this morning, and once the FDA has okayed that, we will immediately start that. But we also told the agency we will do a protocol for over 65, but not with sub-Q, but with IV as the first dose and perhaps 2 extra doses. That makes it 3 doses versus 2 doses. But the next 2 doses will be sub-Q perhaps. We would like to have time to discuss that with the agency while our CD16 will immediately start. We also have currently open label arm of a CD12 study, which allows us to enroll patients in an open label of CD12. We will get to those results also. So in regards to FDA in United States, that's what we have. We formally have asked for conditional emergency use authorization, filed our request with the FDA. Next, United Kingdom. MHRA met with us on March 4th, 2021. March 4th is about 18 days ago. They said you should file for accelerated rolling review, and we will grant it to you. We already reported that to everybody. We are in the process of going forward with them in this regard. In regards to Europe, EMA, we are preparing a request to meet with EMA to discuss fast approval of leronlimab with EMA. We plan to submit this as soon as possible. Our team is working on it. In regards to Health Canada, we have submitted the timeline, which is the first part of filing your interim order. Interim order is similar to EUA in the United States. We have requested Health Canada's authorization for import and sale of leronlimab in Canada. We will update everyone as soon as we have further information on that. In regards to Philippines, I have stated that within 24 hours to 48 hours in our last call, we should have our first patient injected for CSP, which is Compassionate Special Permit. That patient request had came from a hospital, but the next day they had took the request back because the patient felt better. So the group in Philippines are working with another hospital now to be able to get the first patient injected in CSP. It has not happened yet. We are working with them. Once we get 5 or 10 patients, we believe our case of getting emergency use authorization in Philippines will become much stronger. We are working on that. And the team in Philippines has also asked us about our long hauler COVID-19 protocol, and they're looking at that for a CSP or perhaps other participation in the trial. In regard to Brazil, we are working to identify a marketing authorization holder, MAH, in Brazil. You need that in order to go forward. Meanwhile, we are working with our contact in Brazil to submit a meeting request and package to ANVISA, Brazilian Health Regulatory Agency. And we are doing that as soon as possible. We are going forward, and we are anxious because we know the situation in Brazil is not very good. In regards to another country that we are pursuing now is Hungary. We are also exploring Hungary. Initial communication with Hungarian Minister of Health. They requested us to send them a summary of Laran Lama past data. We expect that we will be able to send the presentations and executive summary to Hungarian agency by tomorrow. So in this slide, we also talk about how many patients do we have in the open label arm of CD12. Our CD12 is a trial that we completed. We have 51 patients, and the results of a critical population of that 51 is better than what we already report, but it's only 6 patients, so it's not enough to make a big deal out of it yet, but we are hoping to get to 10, 15, and talk to the agencies about that, and we will update them. The results of the rest of the patient of 51 looking very similar to our severe population, and in some cases better, whether it was 65 less or 65 over. We will also discuss those results with the agencies. Operator, could you please go to the next slide, slide number 3. It says HIV on the top. Now, we did not detract with all these extra duties that was put on the shoulder of our team to do COVID-19, 2 different trials, and currently we are doing the 3rd one in COVID long haulers. We did not detract from all of these. We made sure that we continuously go forward with our HIV program. Now, with HIV, we want to file with FDA, MHRA, EMA, and Health Canada for approval for HIV. What we have right now is we have a CMC section which Dr. Nitya Ray is meeting with FDA in the United States on April 7th to file for using Samsung as our manufacturing rather than AGC for the approval. And that meeting has to go forward, and we have to see what happens. We believe that we can submit our dose justification by hopefully first part of May to FDA in the United States. They will review that section, and if there is no problem, then we will go forward with submitting the whole BLA. Keep in mind that the problem with the refusal file that was given to us was the dose justification, one problem, but the second problem was receptor occupancy test. The receptor occupancy test is being developed right now. We were in touch with 3 different vendors, and now we have solidified our position, and we believe we can get that done very quickly. Very quickly means June, July timeframe. But if we get our BLA ready to go, Health Canada has not asked for receptor occupancy yet. We are meeting with them in mid of April next month. If they don't require that, that BLA would be the first one to be filed. They don't call it BLA, it's a different name for the regulator, but it's approval for marketing. We will also follow immediately with FDA with all the data that we have as soon as we can. We believe our BLA could be submitted somewhere in June, July, but there are variables that we would like to report to the shareholders as we get them, so we don't think that we are just delaying because we're not getting the job done. In the past, when it took 2 years or so, we were getting success with a different dose. We had to go make different batch, manufacture more batch, put it in stability, and there was a lot of delays. We're not pointing fingers at anybody but ourselves, but we have dosage success, and that was the problem that came, and we reported to the shareholder as we always do. So if we go to the next page, please, slide number 4. In regards to our cancer program, so we have told everybody that we are wanting to meet with FDA for pre-breakthrough designation discussions. We believe the data that we have needs to be analyzed. We are gathering more and more data and we are very much excited to meet and see all the necessary requirements that the agency will tell us, give us guidance, and then go forward, and we will report to the shareholders immediately. In regards to NASH program, we are getting about 30% of the enrollment has been filled, and we are going forward. We are hopeful to get the enrollment of NASH completed this year and have results soon after. Can we go to the next slide, please, slide number 5, the last one. So in regards to the BLA, as we just said, initiating as early as 1.5 months with rolling review submission. We have asked for rolling review submission from FDA. They have not granted. As soon as if we believe, hopefully they will. If they do, then we can start submitting our first module in 1.5 months, and then hopefully have all of it done very quickly. Again, we will update the shareholder as much as we can. In regards to long hauler, I would like for Dr. Chris Rechner, who is now our Chief Operating Officer, to say a few words. He's doing a fantastic job with long hauler and NASH. But in long hauler, I just want to let you know that we will be finished, thanks to Dr. Chris Rechner, aggressive situation that he has taken with enrollment. The enrollment is like at 36 out of 50. We will finish everybody by first week of April. We will have results. We could have results in 4 weeks if we want to cut it off at 4 weeks, or if we go the full 8 weeks that we have in the protocol, then 8 weeks after. So we're talking about getting results of long hauler very, very quickly, within 6 weeks or maximum 8 or 9 weeks. So Dr. Rechner, you want to say a few words about that, please?
Sure. I think long haulers is a critical study. These patients are really suffering, and not many, if anything, is working for them. They've tried steroids. Usually that's just transient. So we're really hopeful that this will be effective in them. And we saw early signs of that in the CD10 trial, that we really didn't have a timeline on when their PCR or when their positive test was done. So many of these patients may have been developing into long haulers. What's very interesting is that we saw early on through CD10 changes from cognition. And there's 3 key things that we're looking at in the long haulers, and that is the brain fog, their sleep components, and also the fatigue. We have seen also through animal models that leronlimab crosses the blood-brain barrier. And it's very interesting that the neuroinflammation from cytokines is perhaps the pathology in this case. So yes, we're at 36 patients out of 50. It'll be completed first week of April. As it is designed right now, we'll be following the patients for 8 weeks, within a 4-week period after that for safety analysis.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Rechner. I want everybody to know that once we finish the enrollment first week of April, and if we decide to look at the data 4 weeks later, and if the team wants to do that, then that's first week of May where we could look at it. If not, first week of July. This is very soon, and we're very excited about that. Dr. Kelly, would you like to talk about the mechanism of action of why we believe leronlimab has potential in long hauler?
Yeah, it's very interesting in regards to the mechanism of action. We think that what's happening is the virus is going along the olfactory nerve into the cribriform plate and then entering the central nervous system. And as Chris was saying, we from animal studies in our macaques, we know that leronlimab crosses the blood-brain barrier and attaches the CCR5 receptor with approximately 70 to 75% receptor occupancy. So our feeling is that if we can control the neuroinflammation, we can help with the cognitive impairment. But there's also the whole issue of autonomic symptoms that we can believe we can help with as well. So that's really the mechanism of action.
No, thank you, Dr. Kelly. So also before we go to Q&A, I'd like for Dr. Rahman to say a few words about the challenges we had with the BLA and perhaps give a little bit insight to the shareholders that the team is working really, really super hard with all of these different trials, a small little company having this many indications and not dropping the ball and continuously going forward. I'm very thankful to the team. Dr. Rahman, could you please?
Sure, Nader. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to assure our investor community that we are working very diligently, and the work is progressing. So I don't think we have had delays. I wouldn't say that, but we have a lot to do, and some of the things we have to depend on vendors who and some of the labs that needs to be done in the lab cannot be worked from home. And those vendors had to face some challenges in terms of having enough people in the lab. And those are the few data that got delayed a little bit. Otherwise, because of the COVID situation. Otherwise, as soon as the data are coming, we are writing each of the documents. We are making sure in the refuse to file letter, whatever the FDA has asked, we are addressing each and every issue that they have asked. So we are progressing very well, and I'm very confident that, as Nader mentioned, the timelines, depending on whether if the dose justification turns out to be quite robust, even without the receptor occupancy, we may be able to actually submit in the June timeframe. On the other hand, if FDA insists on having the receptor occupancy, which is also underway, that was one thing because of the COVID, several vendors could not even start the work, but now it's underway. We are working. We are not only working with one vendor, we're working with more than one vendor just to make sure that if one doesn't work out, the other one should work out, and one may come in earlier than others. So in every which way, the BLA is progressing. I am pretty confident in the way it's progressing. We will be able to submit a very high-quality BLA, which will have a very high chance of approval. Thank you. Nader?
Thank you, Dr. Rahman. So I also want to clarify one thing that was texted to me just right now. I want to make sure everybody knows that Laran Lama, when we administer it gives us 100% occupancy of the receptors. In contrast, Maraviroc was told to us that does about 40 or 50%. This is from our consultant who has worked on it and is working right now on receptor occupancy. And hopefully we can get all of these matters resolved, get the BLA submitted hopefully soon. And meanwhile, we work as hard as we can with the COVID-19, which we believe has been a successful path for us. It's not to the finish line, but we will be working very hard to get it there. With that, let's please go to Q&A. Ariane, please.
When did the company put its submission in for conditional EUA for COVID-19?
About 10 days ago.
There has been a great deal of confusion on the part of investors regarding the receptor occupancy test from the BLA filing in May 2020. Can you give any specific details as to what the FDA wants, what kind of receptor occupancy assay is being performed, and when the data will be ready? You've touched a little bit on this, but I think if you have any additional things to add, Dr. Burhassan, this is the time to do so.
Thank you. So in regards to the receptor occupancy we had in the past, once the CD12 was over, we were able to see how accurate it was. It was less than 50% or so accurate. So we saw it for ourselves, the accuracy of it. And in CD10, there was the inaccuracy. And FDA had picked up on all of those and wanted to make sure that we do a receptor occupancy the right way. And please don't think anything but what we're telling you. It's 100% truth and clarity. The FDA has asked for certain things that they require. They're big experts over there. They're not just somebody who doesn't know the stuff or somebody has to go to train them. They know everything very well, and they question the right things. And our new experts that we have brought for receptor occupancy agrees with all of those. And we are going forward with that, and thank God we are happy that we are getting it resolved finally. Next, please.
Is there any indication that you'll have to do additional studies for the HIV BLA?
We have not been told that by the FDA. When we met with them after we had our primary endpoint back in 2 years ago or so, they said very clearly, you have rolling review given to you to submit your BLA. We got refused to file, and they did not said anything about another trial. They said that trial is okay, but what we need is your dose justification has to be done in the right way that they wanted to have, and receptor occupancy was really not very well done, so they wanted that to be taken care of, and we're doing all of that. And please keep in mind, we will get 30 days, a gift that we believe FDA gave us, and ask us if we want to take advantage of that, and we said yes. We give the package to them, the dose justification, and they will take 30 days to come back and tell us what they think, and if there's any deficiency, they will guide us to make sure we give a perfect package to them. Next, please.
Does the BLA for the UK and Canada face the same issues as the BLA in the US? On a prior shareholder call, Dr. Rahman said the receptor occupancy test is required by the FDA in the US, but not the MHRA. If this is so, what's causing the delay in filing in the UK?
So we have to be careful. Dr. Rahman said that, but we are working with these agencies. So if MHRA now wants our receptor occupancy, we have to check with them. Health Canada did not ask for receptor occupancy yet, but we are meeting with them in middle of April. When things change, I want to make sure that shareholders' mentality is ready, that something will come up. We report to you. That's what we've been doing all this time. That's why we want to change the path that other people do. They go, for 6 months without updating. We want to update you so you know exactly what happened. When we get to Nasdaq, perhaps the updates are not going to be the way it is now, but at this time, as a small company, we're updating you. So the receptor occupancy for Health Canada is not needed as of right now. If it changes, we will let you know. If that does not change and is not required, mid-May or even a little bit sooner, we will be able to file BLA in Health Canada, we believe. And if there's anything change on that, we'll let you know. Next, please.
As per your March 8th press release, have you received clarification from Health Canada on the language within the interim order about the possibility of selling Laran Lama while the application is under review?
We have not, and they have indicated they will not say anything till we submit the interim order. Interim order will require the CMC package, the non-clinical package, and clinical package. Our non-clinical got finished and or is getting finished the next few days. The CMC timeline was provided by Dr. Nitya Ray, our Chief Technology Officer, and the clinical data executive summary is already there, and we will be doing CD16 over there also. Committing to do that trial, supposedly we believe, and we have to verify that with them, believe that their guidance has said that we could market and sell the product while that study is going in Canada. We just got to commit to do that trial also in Canada and have sites. If that's the case, we will be having revenue from our product immediately in Canada. Next, please.
Did the FDA clear you to file for EUA based on your data, or did you take a damn the torpedoes approach and file without FDA support?
No, we never take the damn torpedo approach. We take very wise approach. We have tremendous scientists in our team, and we always listen to them. And our team looked at it very carefully. Dr. Mahbub Rahman has tremendous experience with the agencies, and we talked to our regulatory agency, Amarex, who are very, very well versed in the FDA. They have worked with them for 30, 40 years. So we went forward, we filed the request. When we say we filed, we just, sending the request for them for the conditional EUA. We explain our reasoning, and if the agency agrees, great. If they don't, we respect that, and we will go forward. Next, please.
Does CytoDyn have any trials currently with respect to the variants of COVID?
No, we don't need, as Dr. Scott Kelly indicated. Dr. Kelly, would you like to say a few words about that again?
Yeah, we do not need separate trials for the variants. We don't believe that it'll be a factor in our studies. In fact, we think that's a huge advantage of Laran Lama, that it will not be affected by the variants because of the target.
Perfect. That's our advantage. Next, please.
In January's conference call, it was mentioned that the HIV BLA was a rolling review process with the non-clinical section already completed and ready for submission, and the clinical section would be submitted by Q2. Has CytoDyn submitted the non-clinical section, and is the clinical section close to being ready? I think you addressed this earlier,
yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Pourhassan.
Yes. The non-clinical is getting very close to be done, and because we have to update it with the clinical section, and we will have the timeline for, we just talked about the timeline for the rest of it. But Dr. Rahman, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you have said it correctly. The non-clinical section is more or less ready. They just have to be reviewed once we have completed our dose justification and pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamic report is done. We just need to make sure that we don't need to update anything. That's all. But otherwise, it is more or less ready. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Next, please.
Will CytoDyn actually file the BLA for HIV before July 2021?
We answered that already. Next, please.
I have researched all of our submissions I could find for Laran Lama to the FDA related to COVID, and I've never been able to find closure. Nearly all of our submissions indicated the FDA needs more information, but we do not see the end results or compliance with the requested information. I'm not sure where this individual is, what they're talking about. Do you know, Dr. Pourhassan?
So I did not understand the question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
They've researched some submissions, I assume maybe on the clinical.gov.
Clinicaltrial.gov.
Yeah, trial.gov, and saying something about closure of these COVID trials. I don't know. I think we'll just go on to the next question because it's not clear.
No. Let me just say one quick thing. So the clinicaltrial.gov gets updated by our people at Amarex, and Dr. Rahman has access. Dr. Kelly has access. Dr. Rechner will have access also. We update those. So, if the update is not happening, then we will do it for sure. Next, please.
Can you clarify if any of the EUA rolling review or interim order submission includes the severe population?
No, we have not talked about that yet. Next, please.
Regarding finishing the BLA for HIV, what is the expected time frame for a PDUFA date? Do you want to go through the PDUFA date, Dr. Pourhassan, on how that, at what point that gets generated?
Yeah. After we get our BLA submitted, then we will be able to get PDUFA date. But at this time, let's talk about just submission, please. Next, please.
If conditional EUA is granted in the U.S., how would that impact the CD16 trial, the new COVID-19 trial, when patients can be guaranteed to receive the treatment as an EUA drug? Will we then cancel the trial as a result?
So no, we are hoping that under 65 is accepted, and over 65 we are asking for first dose to be IV and 2 extra dose. So it's a complete 2 different protocol. So perhaps if we get conditional EUA, the agency will give us guide on what to do that. But we are hoping to get conditional EUA and then deal with whatever the agency would like for us to do. Next, please.
Okay, the next set of questions are about the completed CD12 trial. Who was responsible for the selection of the patients enrolled in CD12? Is the same team involved in the selection of patients for the long hauler trial? And what about the NASH trial?
So long hauler and NASH, I will have Dr. Rechner talk about it. Dr. Rechner, can you talk about the enrollment of those two? Who is responsible and how does it work?
Sure. That goes through Amarex, who identifies sites and sends out a site feasibility after the feasibility is performed, an assessment's done, and they get the site on board. A lot of the sites that they've have had prior experience with.
Yeah, I think Dr. Rechner got cut off. Okay.
Oh.
So, go ahead, Dr. Rechner. You're back on. Go ahead.
I said Amerix is the CRO that does the contacting of the sites and then puts out a site feasibility to assess if the site has capability of doing the study or not. At that point in time, then a determination is made and the site is brought on into the study.
Okay, perfect. And with the CD12, the same thing. All of our trials are going through Amerix, the CRO that we have chosen. Next, please.
I'm trying to understand the results of this trial. To me, it seems Laran Lama helps somewhat, but the patient's age has more influence that the medicine that has on the outcome. How do you respond to that?
So Genentech, I believe, or one of the big pharmas who was working on tocilizumab, they did 7 trials, many thousands of patients. They learned from the first trial, then the second one, and so forth. Back in February of last year, when we designed these trials, the number of data and knowledge about COVID-19 was very limited in the world. So we are learning as we go, but we get to see that the results are, very, very positive for us to go forward in this pandemic. And if we have to do another trial, we have learned tremendous amount for the severe and critical population, and we'll design that trial and go forward. Next, please.
How many doses did each Laran Lama participant receive in this trial, CD12?
So it's 700 milligram day 0 and day 7, which is 2 doses. Next, please.
The results of CD12 are very good, but unfortunately did not reach statistical significance at the primary endpoint, but only when adjusting for age. Has CytoDyn already analyzed how this age anomaly between Laran Lama and placebo could occur? Is there also a rationale why the DSMC did not detect this anomaly in the 50% analysis?
So we have no idea if DSMC was given those kind of information. It was blinded to us. DSMC gets to see certain information based upon SAP, statistical analysis plan, that was provided before. So the stratification, as I said, you have to have knowledge of what's happening in the field with that indication, and there was not that much knowledge. So we now know what we have to do. Next, please.
Did CD12 patients obtain the same biomarker lab results at day 14 as did the Montefiore patients? Reduced viral load, improved CD4, CD8 ratios, reduced RANTES, and near 100% receptor occupancy?
So we have not looked at everything at this time in that regard. Mainly, you want to hit your primary endpoint. Your mechanism of action, you can talk about it, as in a great length if you want. The agency will say, okay, great, that's beautiful that your mechanism of action is great. Let's see the trial. So we're focusing on the trial, and we are using those data to gain more knowledge to our product, but our scientists are doing that. Next, please.
What is the statistical likelihood or probability that the observed imbalance in the age distribution, cases above age 65 in the treatment group, between the 2 arms of CD12 study is a chance occurrence?
I have no idea. We'll ask our statistician perhaps about that. Next, please.
Dr. Kelly, can the CytoDyn team revisit the results of the CD12 to find out if any of the patients who received Laran Lama became long haulers?
That's actually an excellent question. That's something that Dr. Chris Rechner and I were just recently discussing, but we're keeping that internal for right now.
Were the key subgroup analysis of critical patients, time to discharge, age adjustment, prior or concomitant COVID-19 treatments, and dexamethasone use all pre-specified in the statistical analysis package pre-filed and pre-approved by the FDA?
So Dr. Rahman, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah. Were the key subgroup analysis of critical patients, time to discharge, age adjustment, prior or concomitant COVID-19 treatments, and dexamethasone use all pre-specified in the statistical analysis package pre-filed and pre-approved by the FDA?
Yes. Thank you.
Since open label extent, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Ariane, let me add one quick thing.
Okay.
So please make sure everybody understand that there are pre-specified analysis, which statistical analysis plan, SAP, is given to the FDA before you unblind. We had the time to discharge as part of one of those analyses. And the other analysis also, were specified. But when you look at subpopulation, the guidance of the FDA doesn't allow you to go get approval with that. So it's not like the FDA is denying us anything that we are having the right to get. They're telling us we are working with you. I hope everybody understands that the victory here is we can do one more trial, and if we duplicate what we learned from this trial, we can get approval. That's what the FDA is saying to us. But there was nothing there that FDA just said, no, I don't like that because you're CytoDyn. It was nothing like that. We're getting a lot of comments like that, and it's not right. Next, please.
Yeah, can I just add to that, Nader?
Please do. Please.
The issue here is, absolutely what Nader said, that these are subgroup analysis, and FDA and other regulators, if your primary endpoint is not met, then they consider this subgroup analysis as exploratory, and they do not want to give approval based on that. If the primary endpoint was positive, then we could get additional indication based on these subgroup analysis. So that's how it works. So it's not absolutely true, as Nader just said. It's not that FDA has something against us. It's just that's their rule. Their statistical and regulatory rules. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that explanation. Next, please.
Dr. Gorakhsan, could you explain what the reason for you had mentioned that maybe you're thinking about doing a COVID-19 trial with the first injection being an IV infusion. What's the thinking behind that?
So our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Nitya Ray, indicated that would be a great idea. Our scientists think, and there was a couple of very strong doctors in the social media also send us emails, and they were right on the money on what they're saying, and we are aware of that. That's why we were designing another trial for over 65. Under 65, our results were really strong, so that's our primary protocol we just sent to the FDA. The over 65, we like to have the first dose to be IV and have 2 other doses. But we don't want to talk too much about this at this time till the agency tell us what they think, and then we report to the shareholders what we are allowed to do under their guidelines.
This is the last question in connection with the CD12 trial. Since open label extension for the CD12 was announced December 24th, 2020, will the data from the open extension be included in the data in the CD12 to somehow bolster support for EUA?
So that's a very good question. The MHRA had indicated that they would allow us to extend CD12 to go forward and get more data for them. We didn't really get into, this is open label arm or anything like that, but we are going to submit that data to MHRA and FDA here in U.S. and other agencies. But those are all things that we are very well aware of it. We're looking at the data every day for extra patients and how it's panning out to be, and that's a process of coming up with the final protocol. That was part of it, and it will be part of our thinking going forward. Next, please.
The next set of questions are concerning the long hauler trial and probably directed to Dr. Rechner. Could you please clarify the number of patients? ClinicalTrials.gov speaks about 102 participants, but then there's 50. Can you explain the difference?
We initially started with 100 patients. The FDA wanted it at 50. The and the clinicaltrials.gov site was not updated. It was in one section, but not in another.
Is 50 too little to have statistically significant results?
Well, this study is really helpful because we're looking at very interesting biomarkers, and we're learning a lot already about this group. And this is the first trial, really, that's been going on. So we wanted to get a very good idea of biomarkers with the patients and look at what we can measure with these patients to use that information along with what we learned in CD10 for a phase 3 study.
It seems there are a plethora of positive comments from patients getting better after their first injections in the long hauler trial. How many patients do you anticipate that the FDA will find acceptable for a phase 3 trial? And has the FDA recommended CytoDyn file for conditional EUA for critical patients? I think that one goes back to the CD12, that last question. But so again, it seems there's a plethora of positive comments. How many patients do you anticipate that the FDA will find acceptable for phase 3 trial?
Well, I take
Dr. Rechner,
the positive.
but go ahead.
Yes. I'd take the positive web site comments. So the investigators don't know whether the person's getting placebo or IV. Placebo or IP, or investigational product. But there are a lot of patients that are feeling better in the trial. We don't know whether that's placebo or the medication. It could be that there's a placebo effect. But I know there's a lot of talk with several of the patients that just very shortly after the first dose started feeling better. So that's what the study is designed to look at. In terms of the phase 3, the number of patients that we'd have, we need to work with the FDA on that and use this study to estimate how many we may need. And in terms of the critical group, that's, I guess, maybe Dr. Rahman would talk about.
Yeah, let me just say one quick thing. So the company decides how many patients we want to do in phase 3. FDA will say, okay, you say this many you're going to do and hit your primary endpoint, go ahead. So as Dr. Rechner indicated, we got to look at the results and have our statistician and the scientists, go over that and see what we feel comfortable with to do. But this study is very crucial to understand those ins and outs to be able to design the power of the study.
Yeah, so
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may just add a little bit to that. What Dr. Rechner and Dr. Purasan said is that this study that we are doing right now will help us understand the effect size in various different endpoints as well as the biomarkers. And based on that, we, the clinicians and the statistician, we sit down and we look at those numbers and see how many patients we will need to be able to show that difference, and what is called the power of the study. So at least we want 80% power. So that's how it will be determined. So we really cannot say now, before even seeing the results of this study, this long hauler study that's happening. So as soon as the study is finished and we have the results, we will have a very good idea in terms of how big the trial will have to be able to show and get a positive p-value in that study. Thanks.
So the next question I will answer, is there any conflict from Dr. Rechner's wife's trial site participating in company trials and financially benefiting from the trials conducted there? The company's clinical trial efforts are set up to eliminate potential sources of bias that could possibly occur at its clinical trial sites. Neither Dr. Chris Rechner nor his wife, who owns the site used to conduct some of our trials and currently being used as one of the sites for our NASH and COVID-19 long hauler trial, are involved in any company clinical trials at this site. And contrary to the misleading misstatements by Adam Feuerstein from Stat News, which the company asked him to immediately retract, and he refused to do so, does not see, has not treated, and will not treat any patients at these sites for the clinical trials. The company has also determined that the financial terms of its relationship with the Center for Advanced Research and Education, this site, which predated Dr. Rechner's appointment as Chief Operating Officer of our company, are comparable to the terms available to other unrelated third-party sites, and it is in the best interest of the company to continue working with this site. The next set of questions are concerning CD16, the new COVID-19 clinical trial. What is the status of this trial? Has the protocol been submitted and finalized with the FDA? When will it be finalized? How long do you anticipate it will take? And will you have the DSMC review the trial? And finally, what are the primary and secondary endpoints? This is a big question. If you need me to break it up, I can.
No, that's fine. So the CD16 has been finalized with FDA. However, once we got all green light, we have changed our approach and split it to two trials. One, exactly what we agree with FDA, but for less than 65. And one, we are going to work on it for over 65 with IV at the original dose and 2 extra doses sub-Q on top of that. So even though it was 100% ready to go, but now we want to wait to make sure the agency is okay with us making that change of less than 65 only with the 2 dose that was originally with CD16. The primary endpoint for this is for patients who, let me have Dr. Rahman actually explain that. Dr. Rahman, could you please explain the primary endpoint for CD16?
Sure. So the primary endpoint for CD16 is patients who are alive and free from respiratory failure, which is similar to what we did in CD12, where we had discharged alive, very similar to that. And in that endpoint, we saw in the critical care, critically ill patient population, the results were 10% versus 27%. So that's why we felt that this primary endpoint will be, we have a very high chance of hitting it, and also because of the delta that we had, the sample size, we were also able to keep it down. So there's a slight modification. Instead of discharge alive, FDA has made it a little bit easier to make it alive and without respiratory failure. That's all. So that will be the primary endpoint. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a quick thank you so much, Rahman. And just want to make sure everybody knows that the statistic that Dr. Rahman just gave 10% versus 27%, that means we were better 166% in the leronlimab arm. Next question, please.
You didn't indicate in the answer to that question how long do you anticipate the trial will take, and if you'll have the DSMC review the trial.
Absolutely, we'll have interim analysis. We are going to have DSMC look at that. And if the results when we have the interim analysis has a p-value statistically significant, MHRA has already told us that they will accept that. I'm pretty sure FDA will too, but we will have to just hear back from FDA, then we will give all the ins and outs of the trial to the public via press release.
Will the new COVID-19 study of leronlimab include in the standard of care arm tocilizumab and dexamethasone? Excuse me.
Yeah. Is the study what? I'm sorry?
Will you be including as part of the standard of care the treatment of tocilizumab, which I'm sure Dr. Kelly can pronounce better than I can, and dexamethasone?
No, in this trial we're not doing that.
No.
I mean, we're not making it specifically. It's maybe if Dr. Rahman should address that.
Yes, thank you, Nader. Yeah, so the comparison is standard of care, institutional standard of care, whatever the hospital uses, plus placebo versus standard of care plus leronlimab. So these days, the standard of care includes dexamethasone, tocilizumab, remdesivir, all those things. So we are not excluding anything, and we are not specifying anything. It will be simply standard of care, whatever the institution or the hospital uses. Thank you.
Which will enhance our enrollment pace. Thank you, Dr. Rahman. Next, please.
The next question is concerning breast cancer. I understand that Laran Lama seems to work on breast cancer, especially against developing metastases. Is there any advancement in this field and Pro 140?
So,
I'd be happy
Dr.
to
Kelly
talk.
will talk. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Dr. Kelly, please.
Doing a presentation at the triple-negative breast cancer digital summit on late April. So in that, I'm going to be talking about the mechanism of action of Laran Lama and the tumor microenvironment. So I would encourage people to listen to that because I think it's going to be, we're going to be in front of all the big pharma companies, and I think it's going to get a lot of recognition.
I'd like to add something here. We are not reading very powerful statements from patients who have sent that to Dr. Kelly. Dr. Kelly immediately jumps on any email that we get about anybody who needs to get leronlimab in compassionate use or get in our trial or, in that matter, emergency IND. But we're getting, quite a bit of these testimonies, and one of them, we have a case study which we are publishing, and we will be talking about that soon. But the number of patients that are coming to us with a good result is really been really enjoyable to see those kind of things. Next, please.
The next question is about stock trading, and I will respond to it. People have asked general questions about trading by insiders, which are executive officers and directors of the company. Our insider trading plan is available on our website and is followed by all insiders and employees of the company. Because we are a pre-revenue company, we have essentially 3 trading windows where insiders may buy and sell CytoDyn stock unless they enter into a 10b5 trading plan, which is also discussed in our trading plan on our website. The trading windows are approximately 1 month from mid-April to mid-May, mid-October to mid-November, and mid-January to mid-February. Those are the only times insiders may trade in our company stock, and that's also subject to not being in possession of material non-public information. And each transaction must be reported within 2 days of the transaction and are so reported with the SEC. The next question is, can the company do anything about people who short our stock? Do insiders need to be evaluated? The company is evaluating how it can determine who is trading our stock, including shorts. None of these transactions are happening by any of our insiders, as we are prohibited under our insider trading plan from shorting our stock. The next questions are directed to Mr. Mulholland. Most companies want to be on a bigger exchange, New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq, to have access to more liquidity. CytoDyn is still traded OTC. Don't you want to go on a better exchange? If yes, why? Or isn't that possible for some reason?
Thanks, Ariane. Let me assure everybody that I personally and professionally would like to be uplisted as much as everyone else. However, in direct response to the question and the whole topic of what is holding back our uplist, let me just say, in connection with our ongoing efforts to achieve a NASDAQ uplist, we have 3 primary issues to address, none of which are insurmountable. First is the elimination of what is called commonly referred to as the going concern exception to the audit opinion on our financial statements. This can be resolved in one of 2 ways. Raise a lot of capital now, which we choose not to do so, especially at these levels, or obtain some form of approval of our drug, resulting in product orders and revenues. We believe an approval is probable. Therefore, this is management's preference to resolve the going concern exception. Let me give you some color on this. recognizing that the concept or term going concern is derived from general accepted accounting principles. Note that our November 30th, 2020 balance sheet reported $99 million of inventory. Upon approval, we have the opportunity to generate significant revenues and gross margin dollars in a pretty short time period. So that addresses the going concern issue. The second issue that we are addressing is the shortfall in stockholders' equity, which, as many of you know, Nasdaq has a requirement of a positive stockholders' equity of around $5 million at the time of uplist. As stated before, we have an ongoing plan to cure this shortfall. Now, the third issue that is slowing down our uplist is that until our stock price seasons above $4, we are now also subject to Nasdaq's net tangible assets test, whereby net tangible assets must be greater than $2 million. So what is the net tangible asset test? Well, first you start with stockholders' equity, which at November 30th was a minus $6.5 million. Now, a lot has happened since November 30th, but that's the last public number, minus $6.5 million. Then one subtracts from that the carrying value of your intangibles. And at November 30th, our intangibles were approximately $12 million. So if you start with a minus 6.5 and subtract 12 million, you're a little over minus $18 million, which is short of a positive 2 million. So the solution to issue number 3 is twofold. One, stock price above $4 eliminates the net tangible asset test, or increase equity. They're both front and center on everything we do and manage on behalf of the benefit of the shareholders. So in closing, lastly, I just want to remind everyone again, we can successfully address all of the quantitative uplisting criteria, but the exchange also considers various subjective issues. And at the end of the day, it's ultimately the exchange's decision on who's uplisted and who's not, but we remain confident that everything this company has to offer, that we will achieve this in some point in time in the future. Ariane, thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
So the next question I will address as well. Please provide some color to the recent increase in investigations and lawsuits, and more importantly, if any of them are getting enough traction to be disruptive to the team's work. I will respond to the lawsuits because I'm not aware of any investigations to which this relates. We cannot comment on litigation, but we did succeed in one derivative action a week ago where the same prior directors who sued in Delaware lost, and the case was dismissed with prejudice. A settlement was reached in our larger derivative action with the Special Litigation Committee assigned to investigate the matter, and the hearing to accept that settlement is scheduled for April 19th. All of the proposed settlement documents can be found on our website under Notice to Stockholders. There is a new class action suit that was filed in Washington last week. The company and the individual defendants deny any allegations of wrongdoing and intend to vigorously defend the lawsuit. There have been no other class action lawsuits that we're aware of. However, there are a lot of law firms that are out there, what they call phantom firms, trying to act as if they've issued a lawsuit against the company in an attempt to get individuals to call them. We have seen news stories of other class action suits, which we will, if one gets filed, we will vigorously defend as well. In terms of disrupting the teamwork, of course, lawsuits are disruptive, but they are not in any way getting in the way of the team getting their work done at this company. The next question, will you be announcing soon any updates of the investor from Los Angeles? Also, in January's webcast, Nader said that we were going to meet the FDA regarding orphan drug status for cancer. Has that occurred?
So I never said orphan drug designation. I said pre-breakthrough designation. This is very different. In regards to the patient in Los Angeles, this patient, his doctor had called us to talk to him because he was very happy and thankful for his life being saved, according to him. I'm not saying this is the reason leronlimab works, but these are anecdotal data, and since you asked, I will tell you, I had the call with this very wonderful gentleman. He offered any kind of help he could bring for us. He told me that he had been in a hospital, nothing was working, and he said goodbye to his children, and he said he was close to death, where he could see the end. And leronlimab then was chosen, and he was revived. And he said, just whatever I can do to help, please let you know. And I was very thankful about that. And we will work with him for perhaps on certain things. In regards to orphan drug designation, there was no orphan drug designation. It was breakthrough designation, as I said. And breakthrough designation, pre-breakthrough designation meeting with FDA will be request soon. I have already told Amarex to prepare that. Next, please. Arian, you're on mute, I believe.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. Dr. Kelly, you stated that CytoDyn was developing into an oncology-focused company. Could you expand on why you feel this is the right direction for the company and what you are doing to steer the company in this direction?
Yeah, I would love to. I think that the future of cancer treatment is immunotherapy. And for a long time, they didn't want to accept that inflammation was part of, tumor growth and a crucial component to cancer progression. But I think now things are really, really changing, and oncologists are now focusing on controlling the tumor microenvironment. And I think that's where we have the most impact. This is based on strong science. When we looked at the tumors, we could see in the tumor microenvironment that the inflammatory cells were loaded with CCR5. We also did animal studies at the Cleveland Clinic. We showed a significant and statistically significant inhibition of colon cancer metastasis to both the liver and the lungs. But we also saw something very interesting in that study where we saw a decrease in angiogenesis. And when you look at the pictures, it's pretty remarkable. Without a new blood supply, these tumors can't grow. So we're very excited about that. We did another study which showed a reduction of more than 97%, the incidence of human breast cancer metastasis in a mouse model. But this is where I think it gets really interesting, and this is why I believe that the future of CytoDyn is oncology. And, we started going into patients, and what we started seeing is, one, there's no strong safety signals in these cancer patients. And two, these patients would tell me, I would rather die than go through chemotherapy again. I'm just not doing it. And I know what I'm about to say is extremely anecdotal. I will be the first to admit. But I'm the one who talks to these patients and the doctors. And when you have doctors and patients, and whether that's in breast cancer, bladder cancer, pancreatic cancer, and colon cancer, and they're asking for more drug and they'd like to continue leronlimab, I think you have to take pause and pay attention to that, because this is multiple different cancers that we're starting to have some again, anecdotal but positive signs that we're very excited about. And if you don't take that, go look at all the other researchers all over the world, not from CytoDyn. Forget about what CytoDyn says. Go look at all the researchers all over the world, what they're saying about CCR5 and oncology and metastasis and the tumor microenvironment. I think that, it's very intriguing. And lastly, from a business standpoint, I think it completely makes sense. Everybody's focused on the critical population in COVID-19. That is a very small population. That pales in comparison to the opportunity in long haulers, okay? But when you look at oncology, the long haulers absolutely pales in comparison to oncology, with the potential for 22 different solid tumors and all being the basic same mechanism of action. So, I think the transactions in oncology really support this on Wall Street. So I think it definitely is the future of CytoDyn.
Will all future trials at CytoDyn follow the requirement of 400 people minimum, as mentioned by Dr. Woodcock?
We don't have that. We talk about 200 patients to FDA, and they have agreed with that. So I don't see where that come from. Next, please.
It seems clear that using leronlimab is the best choice for severe cases, but if leronlimab could become approved for moderate cases, isn't it true that many of these severe would never get to that point?
Dr. Kelly, you want to elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
It seems clear that leronlimab is the best choice for severe cases, but if leronlimab could be approved for moderate cases, isn't it also true that many of these severe patients would never get to that point if it was given to moderate cases?
Yes, in theory that would work, but we haven't been approved for that. So in theory, that would work.
Yeah.
Have you considered transcribing your calls? Sometimes it's difficult to hear, and a transcript would help that.
So now that we're doing webcasts, we're saving about $20,000 to $25,000 per call. And if we were going to transcribe also, it would cost us quite a bit. So we are not looking at that at this time. Next, please.
Let me see. What are the lessons learned from the 2 COVID-19 clinical trials that failed to meet their primary endpoint? And how are we applying them to current future clinical trials, if at all?
So we are only looking at our own product and with our own history. Dr. Rahman, you want to elaborate on anything about that? How the other trials data would be playing any benefit to us in our the trial design?
Sure. Yeah. So what is interesting here is that with leronlimab, what we have seen in critically ill patient population, no other compound has shown that kind of results in there. So the learning, if you talk about, is that for critically ill patients, leronlimab probably is, at least for now, is probably the only one to go. And we have also learned that some factors, demographic baseline factors like age and obesity, diabetes, those kind of things also impact. So when we are enrolling these studies, we will stratify them, and some patients actually may have to exclude them because they may not benefit from any treatment. So those are the kind of things that we are learning. But the important thing is that we have learned from our studies that maybe the standard of care treatment may be working for severe patients, but they don't really work that well for critical patients. And that's where we will be showing the benefit. In addition to that, we are also learning that the other area would be the long haulers. So there hasn't been that much trial activity yet, and ours is probably the first one that we have started. So that's another experience there, learning experience there, that we will be going in that direction, because the probably 30-40% of all the cases of COVID-19 will probably have some degree of long hauler symptoms. So that is an important area to focus also. Thank you, Nader.
Thank you.
In the light of the fact that leronlimab is still not approved anywhere for anything, that sales are zero, that the BLA for HIV was rejected, that we have not uplisted to Nasdaq, and that CD12 did not achieve its primary endpoint, why does the company, under your management, still persist in going it alone? And would it not be in the shareholders' interest to find a new CEO with actual experience in the pharmaceutical industry? I think that's directed at you, Nader.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. This is a good question. I appreciate the question. When I first started with this company 13 years ago, it's been a long way. And when I became CEO, I've been in charge for 7.5 years out of the 9 years. We had another person in charge for 1.5 years of that 9 years. During that time, I have always indicated to all the directors that if there is a better CEO to fit for the company, we should definitely do that, and I will cooperate. In regards to selling the company to the other big pharmas, we never shut that down. We have close to 700 million shares out there, and we believe our potential is tremendous. That's all we believe. That's what I believe. And anybody can do the numbers and see what those numbers mean. Now, if we get offer for the right amount, or any amount, we will let the shareholders know, but then the right amount has to be there. And these big pharmas, they know. Last time we were in talk with one company who wanted to do this, they didn't want to do the right math, which is after phase 2, for example, if the data is positive, you give it 15% of the potential. They don't want to go that route. And we feel very strong with the fundraising efforts and with the data and everything we have. But in regards to me being replaced, I don't make those decisions. The chairman of the board, along with the other board members, do. And I'll let Dr. Scott Kelly answer that. Dr. Scott Kelly, go ahead, please.
I'm happy to give some color on this. So, the board of directors, we're always looking for new opportunities to strengthen our management team. That being said, let's stick with the facts for a minute. So everyone should realize that in October of 2012, Nader purchased this molecule for $3.5 million and turned it into a $1 billion market cap company. Not many CEOs can claim that level of success. And he has relentlessly pursued these other indications that he's talked to you about today for multi-billion-dollar potential opportunities for shareholders. When I ask Nader and I say, how are you going to get the funding to pursue these indications? He says, that's on me. That's my responsibility. And he delivers every single time. So I had previously, just so everybody knows, asked the board of directors for a new CEO search. And one of the things that became very clear to me very early on is that I don't think you're going to find a gentleman around that cares more about this molecule and about the shareholders, okay? But nothing's off the table. We will continue to pursue other options for management to strengthen our management team at all times. Thanks.
Thank you. Ariane, go ahead. Next, please.
Mr. Mulholland, how many months can the company sustain current operations without raising additional cash? What are the prospects for raising additional debt financing on the same terms as prior 2 rounds?
Thanks, Ariane. We appreciate the question. However, we cannot comment on future capital raising efforts, but I would encourage the questioner to review our November 30th financial statements along with the subsequent events footnote to the statements. In the November 30th 10Q, we also reported a cash balance of $29.4 million. Our next 10Q for the quarter ended February 28th will be filed on or before its due date in early April. Next.
Have you considered Laran Lama for sepsis?
I'd be happy to take that question. Yeah, I'd be happy to. That is an excellent question, something I've been looking at recently, in fact. There was a Nature article, I believe, in 2012 that talks about looking at Staph aureus sepsis and the important role of CCR5 in that. So, yes, it is something that we're considering. And I'd like to add one more thing to what Dr. Imam was saying about, in the critical patients and the sepsis patients really fall into the category. And it's one of the things that gave me the idea to look back at the literature was that what we're seeing is that we are able to give Laran Lama to the most critical patients that are sickest. And we're not seeing we're able to pair it with other therapies. We're not seeing the drug-to-drug interaction. So to answer your question, do I think sepsis is a possibility? Absolutely.
So we will
at this moment, what do you see as your top 3 in order of viability and scheduled proximity opportunities to monetize Virologics? What remains to be done or completed in order to finalize all steps required to obtain the decision from each of these 3 potential scenarios? Good loaded question.
So our COVID-19, obviously the success that we saw in CD12 is good enough to continue and pursue approval. That's for sure. And then HIV is for sure. We had a primary endpoint. We had problem with the filing the BLA. We explained all of that to the shareholders, and now we have got to the point where we feel very strong that we can file the BLA successfully and hopefully get approval. And then the third thing is cancer. We see cancer patients, as Dr. Kelly said, with testimonies that we're not even reading it anymore to the public, but it's anecdotal, but it's very strong. But our basket trial, that's not anecdotal. That's 10 patients, stage 4, that's gone as small as 8 months, as much as 12 months. So we can't wait to meet with the FDA for pre-breakthrough designation talk and see what the FDA thinks. Next, please.
Have you discussed any restructuring of Samsung contract due to the delay in getting any sales momentum? If so, what are the specifics of those conversations?
I got to start this by first thanking Dr. Nitya Ray for a spectacular job he did with Samsung. We would have been dead in the water with manufacturing, as a lot of companies can't deliver enough product due to the length of time that it would take to get the product. Dr. Nitya Ray had a vision 3 years ago when we asked him to come to our company, and he has done a fantastic job working with Samsung. Samsung feels comfortable with us. We appreciate that. As I said to the public, they all congratulated me on the strong result on CD12 and assured us that they will make any amount of product we want. And in regards to the funding, we have always asked them, what can we do, and we work with them. I'm not going to get to the detail of it because those are not something we can talk in the public. But we feel strong about going forward with Samsung. Next, please.
Last conference call, you mentioned you've been contacted by persons or organizations that may want to pay for trials using Laran Lama for various indications. Has there been any follow-up discussions that you can speak to today?
I'll speak to that, yes.
Please. Go ahead, Scott, please.
No, yeah, I mean, yes, we're in discussions with people that are considering paying for trials in for certain things. I don't want to get into the details until the deal is completed, but that will actually assist us as long as we supply the drug and a few other things. So we're very excited about that. I think it's a sign that people are believing in our drug and the safety of our drug and are willing to explore new opportunities.
In multiple countries, not just one country. But go ahead, next, please.
Can open label extensions or EIND be granted to any hospital patient anywhere?
I believe emergency INDs in the United States can be done with any hospitals as long as they follow the protocol that we have. And in other countries, they have to go through their own regulatory agencies.
And the open label extensions, are those limited to the trial sites where the original CD12 took place?
Exactly. Only those.
Can the person ask if they can get transferred to that trial site hospital even if they're from another state?
They could go to that hospital that we are enrolling, and they will be able to get enrolled perhaps if they qualify for the inclusion criteria of the protocol.
Do you have any sense of when the FDA might get back to you about your request for conditional EUA?
No, we don't. Sorry. Next, please.
How soon do you expect the triple-negative breast cancer trial to resume?
So the basket trial, we have colon cancer, breast cancer. So we are thinking to let the triple-negative breast cancer also be enrolled in the basket trial, but we're evaluating that right now. What the focus should be is the basket trial. We have 10 patients, I believe. I said earlier 9. I believe it's 10 patients that are going with a stage 4 and continuing to survive, and that survival time is long enough for us to believe that this product is working. However, we have to prove those by looking at the CT scan and MRI, and during the COVID-19, some of these patients didn't come to hospital to get their CTC or camel markers that are done in another laboratory. So we're working on all of these, and there's a lot of complexity to all of these, but our team will continue going forward. Next.
How many vials of Laran Lama currently exist? How many additional vials could be prepared using existing bulk inventory? And how many vials can Samsung manufacture per month?
So if you want Samsung to produce quite a bit, they can. And I'm talking about those numbers could be in millions per month even. But right now, the number of vials we have is about 500,000. We have bulk product for another 600,000, and we have vials from past, where from AGC we have also some. So I think the total number comes anywhere close to 1.3 million that we could have available if we are trying to sell.
If existing inventory of leronlimab were sold this year, would the company still need to do financing, or would the proceeds likely be sufficient to fund the other trials the company has planned?
Will be more than sufficient. Next, please.
Is there any chance you will sell the organization and the drug to a big pharmaceutical company that can take the drug to the next level?
That's a question that needs to be answered by the shareholders. If we get an offer, we will send it to the board. The board will do their duty, and they will send it to the shareholders with their recommendation. The vote will be taken, then we will move forward. Next, please.
Is there a possibility of any funding from Operation Warp Speed?
All the possibilities are there as long as we can get emergency use authorization. That's what I believe. I don't have confirmation 100%, but we had talked with them before, and that's what they indicated to us. And I think, Arian, we are now at 2:33. Would you like to do the last one or two questions?
I'm just looking there. The questions are fairly repetitive that are on the list from the callers today.
Should I wrap up then?
I think you can. Yeah, there doesn't appear to be anything new that we haven't already discussed.
Okay, so very, very important takeaway from this call is the CD16 is our focus. Is our focus to get approval for COVID-19. We have green light from FDA to go forward. We made a small change. We sent it to FDA this morning. We were waiting that, and then we will go forward. We are ready to accelerate enrollment. We have talked to our guys on the ground that are very, very strong. Namely, one of them is Brian Barthol and Dr. Kush Dodi. Those guys are telling us what they can do, and we believe we can have success very quickly. But again, we get those timelines once the protocol passes through the site and gets filed with them. So that's our COVID-19 for CD12. Long haulers, we're so close to getting answer. I'm very, very excited. I hope shareholders are sharing the excitement. Then we have NASH, which is, the result that we will get from NASH, if it duplicates the animal study of 70 or 75% inhibition of fatty deposit, that would be fantastic. And we also have our BLA submission that is now coming up. We are getting close to that point, and we feel very strong about that. But we have multiple countries that we are working. We have chosen that path to give ourselves more chances of success. So with that, I thank everybody for being on this call, and have a great day. Bye-bye.